Welcome to the Sencast. My name is Dale Pickles. I'm the host of the Sencast and the managing director of B Squared. If you are a new listener, then welcome to the Sencast. The aim of the Sencast is simple. We want to reach lots and lots of people and help everyone learn, especially me, more about special educational needs and disability. In this episode, we discuss sensory circuits and sensory movement breaks. What are they and how to incorporate them in a busy school day? And of course, I relate it to food and more specifically pudding. Definitely desserts, definitely. My guest this week was Ali Neal, an occupational therapist specialising in sensory processing. And Ali prides herself in finding solutions to everyday problems experienced by children and young people at school that actually work. The Sencast is created and produced by us here at B Squared. Normally I mention our assessment software in this podcast, but this time I'm going to talk about Eversense, our evidence and parental communication system. Eversense feels like social media, so it's extremely easy to understand and to use. It is extremely secure, a safe place to share evidence of learning with parents or external professionals. It's also a great way to capture pupil voice or use it as your homeschool diary or reading diary. Visit the B Square website to find out more about Eversense, or as always, click on that meeting link in the show notes to book a meeting with me, and I will take you through what Eversense can do for you. Now, let's get on with that podcast. My guest this week is Ali Neal, an occupational therapist specialising in sensory processing. Ali prides herself in finding solutions to everyday problems experienced by children and young people at school that actually work and support teachers to incorporate these in their already busy days. Ali runs School Sensory Solutions, which provide regular and cost-effective training for all educators supporting SEND and neurodivergent pupils in schools via an online learning platform. Welcome to the show, Ali.
Hello, thank you very much for having me, Dale.
You are very, very welcome. Today we're diving into sensory circuits and sensory movement breaks, what they are and how to incorporate them into busy school days. So let's start right at the beginning. What exactly are sensory circuits?
Okay, so sensory circuits are a series of structured movements. Basically, you would do activities and movements that you would do to help pupils with their regulation. And then we can vary that into traditional structured sensory circuits and maybe movement breaks that follow slightly less structured pattern. But the general gist with sensory circuits is they do three separate things, and we need to do those three things in a particular order. So we start off with something that's alerting, that kind of wakes us up, gets us fired up. Also, on some level, almost sort of does the old shake the sillies out. So lets us get rid of some of that excess and pent-up energy that we might have. We then move into something that is an organising activity that kind of gets the brain thinking a little bit, the body thinking a little bit more, and does what it says on the tin, kind of organises us and our behaviour. And then we move into the third thing, which is calming, where we do activities that will then just sort of calm us all down, get us into that calm but alert state that we want to be in, and then we can head back to class and hopefully do our best work and participation.
So one of my misconceptions of kind of these sensory circuits is when I think of circuits in terms of going to the gym, it's you are in a room with 5 or so activities, and basically you spend 5 minutes or so on each activity, and you can just rotate. But you all rotate the same way, but you start on any activity, you end on any activity. But the sensory circuit is that specified order. It's not some of you start on the calming one and then move along. It's you do it. It's more of a routine than a circuit. You do it in this order.
Most of the time, all rules are made to be broken.
Excellent.
So, should you have a child in crisis who's in a very heightened state, you might go, right, we need to go and do something calming. And then once we've got there, we might rethink the whole thing. But yeah, most of the time you would do things in that order. But it's not one of those written in stone things. If you need to break the rules, because pupils are all individuals. We've all got individual needs. So I always try and actually teach understanding what you're doing so that you have the confidence to break the rules when that's needed.
So it's more about when you're doing activity, why we're doing it, what's the outcome, what's the purpose of the activity, so you understand that. So almost you could just do one of them going, actually, we all need this activity right now, let's do that, and that's the only one we may need.
And organising generally fits into that category. We all need that all of the time. So when in doubt, that's the one to head for, because it will do pretty much everything for you.
Nice and simple.
It's always nice to have something that's simple that can be your go-to in your toolkit, that you can't really go wrong with.
Cool. So we've done the what sensory circuits. So what's a sensory movement break?
So sensory movement breaks, do you know what? I use these terms interchangeably because I'm more about the what are we actually doing than what are we calling this thing. People tend to see sensory circuits as something a little bit as you described, that you set up with stations and activities that you work round, except other than not like when you're at the gym, which I was last night actually, where we all rotated round at the same time. So I know exactly what you're talking about. But maybe you all rotate round something that's alerting, and then you all do something that's organising, then you all do something that's calming. But you tend to have equipment out, stations set up, so it looks like your gym type circuit, if you see what I mean. That's brilliant, but it's kind of requires the hall to be free, somebody there to be able to set up the equipment, somebody to be able to put it away, you to be able to get the pupil to that particular place, depending on how far away in the school it is. And I think sometimes we get a little bit hung up on that we should do sensory circuits, but actually the practicalities of that can be quite difficult. Sensory movement breaks for me are just when we do this kind of thing, but a little bit more on the hoof. So we can do it anywhere, any space we've got, any equipment we've got, any time that we've got. We can just have something that we can pick up and we can fly with. So I tend to call those sensory movement breaks because we're not necessarily doing a circuit, but actually the principles are pretty much the same. And I'm really happy for people to call it whichever they want to call it, because it doesn't matter. Doing it's what matters, not what we call the thing.
So I suppose if you are in a specialist setting where you kind of have more space and you kind of can set your classroom up in a lot more, you can probably dive into that circuit, that sensory circuit easily. You might have bits in your classroom set up for different activities, always there, so you can just dive in. Whereas in a mainstream setting, you kind of need to go, we need to go somewhere else to do this. So yes, it's really depending on the setting, whereas that sensory break is the exact same sort of activity, but actually we're doing it where we can.
Yes, and we may not have the structured alerting, organising, calming. We might just go for more of the organising, more of the calming, or we might have one piece of equipment that can be used different ways to do those things. But yeah, we might just have a little bit of a corner of the classroom, maybe with a trampette or a peanut roll, dance sack, weighted blanket kind of thing that we can use to have a little bit of a movement break. We might go for a walk around the school and do a task and get a bit of a movement break. We might do something in the playground, could be anywhere, in the corridors.
So one of my questions is, a lot of the time people talk about, kids are out on break, having lots of fun, running around like anything, losing football, winning football, heightened emotions, come back in, let's do quiet writing. Never going to work. So can you have that kind of sensory movement break as a bit of it? You've always had that alerting bit outside, having that calming and structuring bit as they come back into the classroom?
Yes, and it's whether they get that alerting bit outside. So when I go to a mainstream school and I watch typical kids, they have playtime. That is their sensory movement break. They go out, they run around the field, they play football, they play bulldog, they hang upside down from wall bars, whatever it is. They sit somewhere quietly and just read a book and chat to their mate or go for a walk around the grounds. Those typical kids are meeting their own sensory needs and they're having their own sensory movement break. They treat themselves because their brains are able to do that. And the reason we have playtimes regularly throughout school is so that they can do that. Some of the kids that we're working with can't do that. So maybe they go out and they join in the game of, let's take bulldog, which is highly alerting, isn't it? Let's all chase each other and dive around and roll around on the floor. Very alerting. Maybe we can't calm down from that. So maybe we go out and we do that and we come back into class and we are still super high on the ceiling and no, we can't transition to nice sitting quietly and doing our writing. On the other hand, I see kids who have difficulties with their motor skills, their coordination, maybe their social skills as well, and they don't join in the games. So they're not maybe able to cope with the technicalities of playing football or going across the trim track because we don't like that kind of movement because it makes us a little bit nervous. Or maybe we don't have the social skills to be able to join in with the other year 6 kids because actually we're working more at a year 3, year 4 level. So we're not quite on the same level playing field. Maybe we don't have ideas for things that we could go and do, which is a big thing for a lot of our autistic pupils, is having the idea of something to be able to go and do. So I see a lot of our SEND kids going out for playtime and they don't actually get a movement break. When you watch what they do, they just mill around the playground, and when you think about what they've actually achieved, they haven't really done anything, because a movement break is all about us moving our muscles and working our bodies. So if we're not really doing that, maybe we're not getting the break that we need because we either don't know how to do it or we haven't got a group of peers that we can do that with. So you've got the kind of the two things there. They might have gone out and had their alerting bit in abundance and still be a bit wired, or maybe they haven't had anything at all.
They still need the break.
Yeah.
So I can see why there are kind of, it's rules and rules to be broken. It is kind of the sensory circuit is like a menu of things. Here's the things you could do, what you're doing them, and basically it's choosing the right piece for the right child at the right time.
Yeah. It's all about the understanding, the why, when, how, who, rather than picking up a pre-done program and going, right, I'm going to do that. The more you can understand it, the better your circuits will be, or your movement breaks, because you'll know what it is you're doing and you can match the activity to the child.
So for some of those children coming in, it's the calming into the organising type stuff, and for others, actually you need to do the full route through because they haven't had that alerting part. So you need to do the alerting part to build them up and then bring them back down.
Yeah. Particularly, say in special schools, some of the children that I work with have had horrific journeys to school. Some of them are on those minibuses for 60, maybe even 90 minutes. So they've probably tumbled out of bed, been dressed, had some cereal given to them on the bus. Where's that wake up? Where's that movement break? And for me, when I get up in the morning, I need to move. I take my dog for a walk. I do a few things. It fires me up. It gets me ready for the day ahead. Sitting in a car, if I've sat in a car for an hour and a half getting to a school, which I do sometimes, I get out and I need to move and wake myself up a little bit before I can do my best work.
And the thing is, you're aware of that, whereas actually those children aren't aware of that.
No, they're not aware of that at all. So we have to do the being aware of it for them and picking that up.
So I'm going to equate this these three, so it's alerting, calming and organising. Have I remembered that correctly?
Alerting, organising, then calming. We finish on the calming.
So I'm going to basically treat them as starter, main course and dessert.
That sounds a really good menu.
And basically in this situation you can never really skip dessert. But
Probably not.
In my head you can't skip the dessert, but you can literally go to a creams and just have the pudding.
You could just have the pudding, yep.
But others will need the full 3 courses.
Yep.
But generally, you'll always end on that pudding. You'll always end on that dessert.
Generally.
It's getting them ready.
If you had a very switched off pupil, very sort of low arousal, very sleepy, where you need to oomph them up, you might not want to do too much calming because they might end up asleep in the corner if you do that really well. So you might need to focus on the others. So it's thinking about, we want to get our pupils in that just right state for learning. What is it they need? Do they need pepping up? Do they need calming down? Do we actually need to do quite a lot and work through that whole process?
So do you have some kind of examples which are good alerting, apart from just running around?
Yeah. Yes. See, running around, which is what lots of kids do on the playground, it is really alerting. It just doesn't really organise you. It definitely doesn't calm you down, but it does get a little bit of a burst of energy out. So, yeah, again, we need to see what the child comes back in like after that to see what effect it's had. So alerting activities are going to be very fast-paced activities. They often involve fast stop-starts. So if you think about your shuttle runs maybe at the gym where you're going backwards and forwards rather than running one way for a really long time. They'd often involve changes of head position. So maybe you are upright and you're bending down. So now with your shuttle runs, you're going to be picking up a ball off the floor and then popping it in something high up. So we've got lots of changes of head position. And you might get some spinning movements. They're very alerting. So if an activity includes those, fast-paced, stop-start, changes of head position, spinning, it's really likely to be an alerting activity. And then you can throw in alerting music or alerting visuals if you needed either a little bit extra to help you along, or if you just needed something and you didn't have the space to move. Let's listen to some really upbeat alerting music. That will help us as well.
Nice. So you can start at dancing, start at running, and go up from there depending on how much space and equipment you have.
Yes.
Nice. But the main thing is as much physical movement, as you said, almost like you're kind of like setting their proprioception bits. I think is proprioception where you are in space?
Yes. Yeah. So when it's
I'm
alerting,
always happy when I get the right one.
When it's alerting, we do a lot of vestibular input. So that's the stop, start, the spinning, the changes in head position. They're really alerting. That's one side of vestibular. Weirdly, the other side of vestibular comes in the calming side. So that's where vestibular becomes quite a tricky sense. Proprioception is our magic friend and helps us out with pretty much everything. Largely the organising things, but it fits into all of those categories as well.
So I've probably got it wrong then. You're just being polite. Thank you.
No, not at all.
But in my head, it's almost like going for the different height, the moving, the twisting. It's sort of like, okay, so how high can I reach? What position can my head? You kind of like trying to stretch every side of the body so you kind of know how far they can go and kind of experiencing those sensations. So if you haven't, you're kind of waking it all up. And then once you've woken it all up, you're then bringing it back down to a sensible level. Makes sense.
Yeah.
So, second activity, organising.
Yep. So organising activities are very heavily proprioceptive activities. So we are moving our body against resistance. So our proprioceptors are in our muscles and our soft tissues in our bodies. And they're working all the time because we always know where our body is. If you closed your eyes now, you'd know where your hands are, you know where your feet are, you know where your body is. But when we work our muscles against resistance, we get even more input. And proprioception is the sense we call our magic sense because actually it does everything for us. It alerts us, it calms us down, it organises us. When in doubt, proprioception is always the way to go. So our organising activities are going to involve a lot of proprioception. So we are moving our bodies, particularly moving our muscles, and the more resistance we get into that, within reason, the better. So we're pushing, we're pulling, we're dragging, we're lifting, we're holding, we're stretching, all of those things. We're also probably multitasking a little bit, or we're bringing in a little bit of brain power. So we're thinking about what we're doing and how we're moving our body. So shuttle runs don't take a lot of thought, but maybe crossing some river stones with a coloured ball that we have to get in the right coloured hoop at the end, we have to think about a little bit more. And it's that thinking about it that helps make it really organising.
So would hopscotch be a good organising activity?
Now, this is where it depends how you do it.
Because in my head, organising, like you're putting books in colour order or your alphabetical order, but it's not. It's organising your thought processes, not organising something.
So hopscotch would be an excellent organising activity unless somebody did it at 1,000 miles an hour and built in some commando rolls in between and sort of dashed up and down really, really fast, in which case then it could be actually quite disorganising because of the way the child's done it. And this is where I often see sensory circuits go wrong, because you take an activity like hopscotch and you don't look at how the child does it. So if you do your organised hop apart, bend, pick something up, control your body while you're doing that, because hopefully you do the bending while you're standing on one leg if you're able to do that, come back down, put your beanbag or whatever in a coloured pot, then yeah, that's beautifully organising.
But if you turn it into a race, then it becomes an alerting activity.
It could probably become alerting. Yeah.
So in my head, yeah, all those things are like going through the hoops or the tyres on the ground or the ladders on the ground. All that stuff is kind of you having to think about where your foot's going. You're not just letting your foot run. You are literally going, you have to be precise.
Yes.
But as soon as you start turning it to a race, it becomes alerting again.
Yes. Yeah. And there the trick comes because the children that I work with very poor movement skills, very poor coordination, will often go at 1,000 miles an hour because it's easier for them. Think about riding a bike. Is it easier to balance when you go slowly and carefully, or is it easier to balance when you go really fast? Balance is better when you go fast. So you will see kids that struggle going really, really fast and possibly throwing in that commando role because they've fallen over. So let's not let anyone know we've fallen over. We'll turn it into a commando role and look really cool. And then next minute, your activity that you thought was organising has actually turned out to be really alerting. And you're wondering why your sensory circuits don't work. It's knowing what the activities are supposed to do and how we're doing them that's really key.
So are there good organised activities for those who struggle with that coordination?
It's breaking it down, getting it the just right level of challenge for the child. If it's too hard, you run the risk of them either doing it really fast, finding it really alerting, or actually then we're going into a fight-flight response because we're given something that's too challenging. We've raised our anxiety levels. So always getting the challenge just right for the child. So it's just hard enough that they've got to think about it, but not so hard that it's impossible. And providing that support and that scaffolding along the way. If we're learning to balance and walk along a beam, it's okay to hold a hand. Maybe we start off holding two hands, then we hold one hand, then we do the whole Superman link our little finger thing, and then, can we do no hands? See how we go. So we just break that task down and make it just right for the child.
And again, it's not about who can get over that beam the quickest.
No.
Or who can do it in the least steps, or it's just each child is doing it at their own speed that is helping them. And I suppose that's the challenge in all of this, is to help people not be competitive.
Yes.
That's probably the hardest part in this.
It is the hardest part. And helping the kids that have got coordination issues, particularly those that are really good at covering it up. And the number of times I'm in a school and I'm told, no, this pupil's coordination is really good, because they can do the obstacle course really, really fast. And the reason they do it so fast is because they can't do it if they slow down.
If you slow down, you might actually look at my technique.
Yeah, and see that I actually can't do it.
When my daughter was in reception, they always used to go down to the woods every Friday, and we used to go and help out, and it was so much fun. And one of the things, there was a fallen down tree, and they loved walking along it. And you had children who could confidently go along, and then those it was two hands. And over a period of time, you'd get them down to just that finger.
Yeah.
But there's always that child trying to push past because they want to show how well they can do it.
Yeah.
And it's
Kids are lovely, aren't they, sometimes?
Yes, look at me. Yes, you're doing really well, but they need the help. Just chill.
Yeah.
And it was always just them pushing it. In some ways, you go ahead because it's just easier, but then they never learnt the patience. So yeah, it was always fun doing that. Those who needed the help, and maybe it took them maybe 30 seconds of real kind of cheering them on to jump off that little drop at the end. Whereas the next child would jump off and do that commando roll, but they'll do a really big jump. Not, as you said, probably not even in control, but it looks good. And whereas this child is probably trying to do it without, very different.
Yeah. So your highly capable child that runs along and dives off the end, that maybe would be an alerting activity for them. Maybe not, depends how they do it. But your child who's focusing really hard on their balance and where they're putting their feet and how they're managing and where their body's going, that's going to be really organising for them. Unless it's too hard and then anxiety provoking. So getting the challenge right, it's this is becoming more complicated now, isn't it?
The rule book the menu's getting slightly more complicated. You can now get allergy advice added onto that now. Vegetarian, gluten-free, celiac and everything else, all added on. Okay, so we've done the organising, and again, we're still in that physical world. It's using it, but it's kind of putting the physical bit into a controlled physical bit.
Yes. With a bit of thought, a bit of planning.
It's still just not organising to me, but I'll leave that. To me, it's control rather than organising. But and literally, when we go organising, oh, you're stacking things, you're doing this. No.
I think organising is what it does to the brain.
Yeah.
It makes your brain organised, makes your body a little bit more organised.
Whereas I literally had it in like Krypton Factory doing the jigsaw type thing. In my head, it was like a more mental doing something, organising thoughts. No, but it's organising the processes in your body, not an organisation task.
Yes. It's the organising effect, not an organising task. Nothing wrong with doing a jigsaw, though, if that what really works for somebody. Then,
yes,
if that's what helps you chill, that's what helps you chill. We all have different ways, don't we? We all have different things. We all would do different things in the evening to wind down. Some people will go to the gym. Some will go for a walk. Some would do a jigsaw. Some will watch telly. It's you can't assume what works for somebody's nervous system works for somebody else's.
No. So, our third activity is going to be calming.
Yes.
The pudding, the dessert, the sundae. Lovely.
This
Obviously
helps us just finish off and make sure that we go back to class in a calm state, because that's usually what the class teacher wants. They don't usually want you coming back bouncing around like Tigger. We need to be coming back chilled, but not so chilled we are now going to fall asleep at our desk. So again, the right level of chilled.
So not Sunday afternoon after roast dinner chilled.
No, we don't want to be going quite that far.
Okay. So what are going to be some good calming activities you can do with 30 children in a school hall environment? Because that just sounds the opposite of calming.
30 at once? Yeah, that could be a challenge. So again, proprioception. So we're using our muscles, but we're doing perhaps slower activities here. Deep pressure is very, very calming. Now that's slightly different to proprioception. That's when we get a bit of a squish. Proprioception is when we're using our muscles. Deep pressure is when something's actually giving us a bit of a squish and a squeeze. And back to vestibular, but the other side of vestibular, so rocking in a linear movement, so in a straight line, in a very rhythmical, predictable way, becomes very calming. So when it's fast, it's spinning, it's non-rhythmical, it's non-predictable, it's alerting. When it's straight line, rhythmical, predictable, it becomes calming. And if you get those confused, think about what you'd instinctively do with a baby or a young toddler maybe. So if you wanted to have a really good exciting time, you might do the ready, steady, whee, throw you in the air kind of activity. Whereas actually if you want to calm somebody down, you do that slow, rhythmical, rocking motion. So if you think about that, it becomes instinctive. It is instinctive what we do. We just forget when kids go to school. So any of those kind of activities then become really calming and help us return to school in a good state. So we could do things like dragging the PE mats to put them away at the end of the session. They're nice and heavy, nice proprioceptive input, but it's quite calming because we're just dragging them along the floor. We might lie in between two PE mats and be the filling in a sandwich. That's actually really nice. Have you ever lay between two PE mats?
No.
It's quite nice. I did have a head teacher walk through as I was in there. I was in the middle of 5 kids and we were all between these PE mats. And the head teacher walked through the school with a very puzzled look on her face. But it was a good activity. I'm always there. I always have to join in. You have to know how it feels to do these things. So get stuck in. Have a try.
I presume you're meaning the thinner ones, not the crash mats.
Yeah, I haven't ever got between crash mats. No.
Probably in my head but actually probably is fine because they're quite a lot softer.
And you know, I do hear about kids at home that get under the mattress on the bed and get under the sofa cushions because that deep pressure is really, really nice. So it's a good thing to do. Under a weighted blanket would work as well, that kind of thing. And the rocking, you might rock over a peanut roll and do that very rhythmical rocking. again, it needs to be quite a small movement because we're going in a straight line. We don't want to be doing that big swinging movement because then we're getting in the rotation movement that's really alerting. We might rock in a chair, we might stand and rock, that kind of thing.
In my head, people talk about before on the podcast, jogging or that going for a 5k run is apparently relaxing. Personally, I don't see it. But it's that the same almost rhythm you would rock a baby with is like a natural rhythm. It's a certain thing, and it's the same sort of thing when you're jogging. It's the same thing, and it's jogging in a line with that repetitive pattern, very predictable, very safe, very
rhythmical, straight line. Head's not moving, your head's straight, it's upright.
So apparently running 5k is relaxing, whereas I think having a sprint is that's the out of control, using all my energy up there. But actually going for a structured 5k run when you can actually run that far apparently is relaxing.
Yeah. And do you know what? I did used to run quite a lot. And for me, it was the lack of anything around me talking to me. So it would be quiet. So sometimes I liked music and you could just lose yourself in the music. Sometimes I just like silence and just time with my own thoughts.
But it's that constant, that rhythm.
Yeah.
I do remember when my kids were young, rocking them, and it's that rhythm.
Yeah.
It was just relaxing.
Rocking
to the point that even as you started talking, I just started doing that. It goes back to it. But it's jogging would not be right for school.
It might, though, for secondary, and it becomes really hard to do movement breaks in secondary school. So you do need to come up with more adult appropriate activities and also equipping the kids with skills for adulthood as well. So you might do your typical gym circuit training and incorporate a run, a walk, the sorts of things. But again, thinking about the principles of what makes it alerting, what makes it organising, what makes it calming.
And it's the simple, slow, certain pace rhythmic without extending. So it's where I would be trying to run 5k, would almost die. That's definitely going to be alerting. Whereas my wife, who's run a lot more, would be quite calm with 5k. And for her, it would be relaxing.
Different people like different things.
Yes.
If you say gardening is a very organising activity, very calming activity, I don't like gardening. So actually, you're going to really knock me off if you tell me to go and do the garden. So that's really not going to work. If that was my sensory activity in school, that one's really not going to float my boat.
And you wouldn't even turn it into an alerting activity. We do it really, really fast and do it badly. It'll be the opposite.
I might end up just throwing the weeds at somebody because I'm bored and I don't like doing this. So it defeats the object. So it's all about finding what's right for that individual.
Cool. So I think most of the things there are something we could do in the hall.
We can do in the hall, we can do in corridors, we can do in the playground, we can do whatever space we've got. I would rather we did something than it was the gold shiny, beautiful laid out circuit. It's much better to just get on and do something. So think about what's achievable rather than maybe what you aspire to. Great to have your aspirations, and if you can have your circuit, then that's great. But if the hall is only free at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday, and actually, when does your pupil need their movement break? When do they need their circuit? That might not be that time. So we have that to factor in as well.
This is one of those things where there's a quote I heard, which I had to read it a couple of times to go, if something is worth doing, it's worth doing it badly.
Yeah, you know when you've got circuits wrong. You know.
Well, no, the whole point is you're saying is, you need to do it, even if you cannot do it in that perfect way. Doing it badly will be better than not doing it at all.
Ah, yes.
Now I had to read that statement and going, what?
I've got you. I say progress over perfection.
Yes, but it's one of those things.
Get it done.
Some things are, if you're going to do it, you do it. But other things are, you know what? I can't do it that perfect way. I can't do this, but I can just about get most of it done if I do it. Then do it. It's going to still have a really big benefit.
The main thing, your golden bit, your magic bit, if you like, is proprioception, because that fits in all the categories and it does everything. If we need alerting, it alerts us. If we need calming, it calms us. If we need organising, it organises us. And that is as simple as using our muscles against some sort of resistance. So whatever your pupil might want to do, carry the recycling out, anything that they're interested in, gardening, whatever, but work their muscles.
So my next question, we've talked about kind of doing it as groups and in the hall and all that sort of stuff. But what happens when it's one child in your class and they need that movement break? What can you do for that one child? Because everyone's going, I don't want them running around in the classroom distracting everyone. I don't want them doing that. And you get all the arguments of why they shouldn't do it. What are sort of things that they can do, and what arguments have you got against those who would say, I can't do it because it'll be distracting?
Yeah, the arguments against can't do that because it will be distracting. Didn't we used to have arguments against, we can't have wheelchair users in school because everyone will look at them and things like that. We're just going back to the dark ages there, aren't we? We're better than that now. And actually, sensory supports, when I'm looking at putting things into classroom, like fidgets, for example, or moving seating that you might use in a class to help kids like this, I'm often told it will be distracting, and yeah, it might be for the first day, maybe even for the first week, but it will wear off. It'll wear off. Everyone looks when somebody's a little bit odd. Somebody comes in with a broken foot and a plaster on. That will be really distracting for the first day or two, and then the novelty will wear off. So yeah,
but also in my head it's like, yes, him doing that on the trampette at the back of the classroom might be distracting for that first week, and then you get used to it. But surely that child getting their energy out in a constructive way is going to be much better than them getting out in a destructive way, which is definitely disrupting learning.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. Because when you've got that burst of energy and you can't keep it in, it can be really disruptive in class. When you're bumping into other people and falling over them and knocking into their chairs because you're getting up and you're moving around and last week I was in a class and the child was pushing the desk because they needed that pressure, and they were pushing against the desk and rocking their chair back, and they actually shoved the desk so hard it shoved into the poor child sat the other side of the desk. Then they rocked back so firmly they bumped into the other child sat behind them, and it was hugely distracting for everybody. Much better if they'd gone to the back of class and jumped up and down on a trampette, for example, which everyone will get used to after a couple of days.
Well, yeah, everyone gets used to it. And I think there is that alerting, but in reality, he may want that more organising. Yeah, of actually, I want to do something with my energy that I have to think about, because actually, I just need to let it out quickly. And then, as you said, it's the steps of bringing it back down.
Yep, and little things like pushing against the desk, that's proprioception, we're using our muscles. The rocking back on our chair, that's vestibular, we're getting some linear rocking. So I can see what he's craving, the movements that he's craving, so let's put those in a more constructive way. And then we flip a behaviour from something that we're telling a child not to do to something that we're telling them to do, and that we can praise them for doing really well at. So it just changes the whole way we view things.
So apparently a question you get asked a lot is they're just unsure on how to do it. So where is a good place to start? How do you start?
Yeah, I have a lot of schools that say they're either running sensory circuits and they're not sure what they're doing, or they really want to do them but they're not sure quite what they want to do. So there are lots of resources out there. There's books on sensory circuits, sensory movement breaks. I've written a book for TTS on sensory movement breaks with a colleague of mine that gives you some ideas. There's loads of videos out there. We were talking earlier about the joys of TikTok and Reels and YouTube. So there's lots out there that you can go and have a look at. The best place to start is if we're using our muscles and we are thinking about what we're doing, we probably can't go wrong with that. That will be getting the job done because we're doing largely the organising component there. The bits where we go wrong is either we do too much alerting or we do too much calming, and we're not hitting that just right zone in the middle. We're either too high or we're too low. So just watch what the outcome is with your child that you're doing it with, and if they are bouncing back into class still quite high, you go, right, next time we need to do more organising and more calming, and I need to look at how they're doing those activities that I'm giving them to see if they're doing them in an organising and calming way. And if they come back to class like Eeyore as opposed to our Tigger, then we go, oh, do you know what, I think we overdid the calming this time. We need to cut that one down next time and bring them back still slightly awake. So it's getting that. So I've probably gone off the question there, I think.
So basically, one of the things we've got to look at is that portion control on the starter and the portion control on the dessert.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some people might need a big starter, others not a tiny starter. Some people want a tiny dessert just to taste. Others want to really eat the whole cake. But I guess that main course, that organising, the size of that is kind of, it can't be too big, that's kind of the meat of it. It's the other bits. It's like, okay, we're going to do that for 5 minutes, and then that child might only need 2 minutes calming, whereas that child might need 6 minutes calming.
Yeah, exactly. I like your 3 courses analogy. I might have to pinch that one. That's a good one. But yeah, don't forget your main course. Basically, your main course is the main event. The organising bit is very definitely the main event. So if you're in doubt of what to do that. If you're short of time, do that. Yeah.
And you might find that some children can go straight from that to getting on with their work.
Yeah.
Others, it's just a bit of calming. So what could calming look like in a classroom?
We generally need just a little quiet area, maybe at the back of the classroom. I quite like pulling like a bookcase forward, or one of the cabinets that have got all the trays with the scissors and bits and bobs out. Pull it forward a couple of feet, 3 or 4 feet, so you've got a little space behind there. Put a mat there, put a bean bag there, because when you go behind there, you've just got a little bit of a hidey hole that just blocks out the too much noise, too much sight, people are touching me, all the things that maybe we're over responsive to and are making it hard for us to be in class. Gives us a little safe space to go to, and really easy to do, but the teacher can still see in because you're only using like your waist high type dividers maybe. And then have something in there, think about your deep pressure, so maybe a weighted blanket, a weighted toy, something like a dance sack can be quite good, those lycra envelopes that you get inside and you can push against them, or you can wrap them round yourself and give yourself a deep pressure hug. You might have something in there that is an activity that you find quite calming to do. So for me, if I need to zone out, it's solitaire on my phone. I kind of lose myself into that, and that works for me. But that might be your jigsaw or some Lego or some therapy putty, anything like that, something that you like to do that's nice, that you can lose yourself in and just calm down with a little bit. And mouth. We haven't talked about mouths, but we use mouths a lot for regulation, and we should certainly include doing work with our mouth in some of our sensory movement breaks. Mouths are very calming, very regulating, very organising. So something to suck and blow. So maybe a straw and some coloured pom-poms, and we suck the coloured pom-pom up with our straw, and then we take it to the right coloured dish and we let go of it and we get the next one, or sorting different coloured tissue paper or something along those lines. Things like blowing kazoos are good, but you won't want to do that in the back of your classroom. That might be go out to a breakout room to do that kind of thing. Having a drink through a straw is actually really organising and calming. So particularly if you have a thicker drink, like a smoothie, or one of those curly straws, if you're really going for it, you can have the one where you put one end in your drink and it comes up and it does glasses and then goes into your mouth. Ever use one of those?
Yes.
But actually, that can be a really good. So go for a nice cold drink through a curly straw. That can work too.
So one of the ones I'm thinking about as you're talking about these different things is that child's going to go sit on that beanbag, do that activity. Is it the teacher says, right, time's up, back to class? Is it better that the child kind of has that time? Or is it even better maybe the child has a timer that it's not someone telling them, they know when it's going to end? What's the best way of kind of managing the time with these?
Now, I would say know your child for that one, and for teachers to use their judgment with that, because you want to go and calm, regulate yourself, become in a good place for work. Do you want to go back? You know, if you told me to sit in a corner, play solitaire, have a nice drink, or do I want to come back and do some maths? I might actually, do you know what? So there needs to be a little bit of a judgment call here, because if the child is still dysregulated, they need to stay in their calm corner until they're done. But then it's a fine line between maybe a little bit of opt-out of work, because I quite like being where I am. So, yeah, judgment call, know your child, know the signs that they are regulated or that they're still dysregulated, what system works best for them. I think giving a child some independence is really good. So knowing when it's time to come back is really helpful. But then that brings us on to another topic of interoception, which is our internal awareness of how we are feeling. And children with impaired interoception may not know when they're dysregulated and may not know when they are regulated. So they might not know when they're ready to come back. So we need to factor that one in as well and help them know.
So it's going to be quite hard to actually set a time limit. It's more like you're going to be keeping an eye on them and just kind of judging by what they're doing, kind of getting that sort of feel, because it might be 3 minutes one day, it might be 2 minutes the next day, and depending on what's happened, it could be 7 minutes that the third day.
Yeah, so you need to use some judgment. So no problem going off with a 3-minute timer and seeing how we're doing, but again, be prepared to break the rules if you think that's not quite right.
Because again, with the PDA stuff, is an adult coming, right, time to get back to work, that's kind of thing.
No.
But a timer saying 3 minutes, and then the teacher perhaps going, and it could be going, are you ready? And if they say no, right, okay, you can have 2 more minutes, but it's now like you've given them an extension, but that's limited. But again, when that runs out, it's not a human telling them. Because that's sometimes they know, okay, I've had my extension, I've got my extra 2 minutes, but I do know when it's up, I've got to come back. There's something about not being told, and I know this for me as a child, being told to do something and knowing I have to do it, two different things.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember that one from childhood as well. I would always go for encouraging independence. And again, we're teaching skills for adulthood, aren't we? To know that when we're regulated and when we come back, because at the end of the day, most of us have got to get out of bed in the mornings, and we might not want to. We do kind of have to. I have to stop eating sometimes, much as I don't want to. So we've got to teach some of those skills as well. So, yeah,
And I can imagine that maybe they do the first 3 minutes, and like, no, I'm going to stay here. They do the next 2 minutes and go, actually, I don't need this 2 minutes. And the next time they might do the 3 minutes and go, I didn't need the 2 minutes last time, even though I had it, I might go back.
And sometimes it's about saying when the next opportunity might be. You know, your 3 minutes is up now, but in an hour's time you're going to have another 3 minutes, or even in 10 minutes' time you're going to have another 3 minutes. So
that's another question: is how many? And there's no hard and fast limit, but there's probably a logical. Is it like you can have one before morning break, one between morning break and lunchtime, or one after? Is there a limit? How does that work?
Again, it's child dependent, and I would be looking at when does the child need their breaks. Getting them in at the right time is quite key. And again, if all you can do is if all you can staff it is at 10 o'clock, then do it at 10 o'clock, because, as you said, do a thing. Whatever you're saying was do a thing badly. Doing
it if you're doing something well is worth. If something's worth doing, it's worth doing it badly.
Yeah. So if all you can do is at 10 o'clock, because that's when you can release a TA to do this, then do it at 10 o'clock. If we have the opportunity, look at when children need that movement break. So for some, I talked about kids that have been on the bus to come to school for ages. They might need it then. Other children might have walked to school. particularly secondary school kids, walk to school. If you felt how heavy their backpacks are, I mean, that's a heck of a movement break. Mine used to have to walk a mile with a ridiculously heavy backpack. They've had a movement break by the time they arrive. But maybe we need one, going back to primary schools now. In the mornings we often do phonics and literacy and maths back to back. Maybe we need one between those, between the phonics and the literacy, because that's a lot of sitting down. Maybe we have playtime and we effectively get a movement break at playtime. Maybe we don't. Maybe we're the child that doesn't. So actually we need to come in and have our movement break after playtime. Maybe we're the child that goes home and has that Coke bottle effect that they explode. So maybe we need to do one right before they go home, which won't necessarily benefit school, but will benefit the child, because maybe they'll be going home more regulated.
Interestingly, as I was shaping a rule in my head, it's generally best to do it at a transition time, like as they come in, or maybe halfway through. But in my head, there's no point doing it before lunch because they're already going to get that sensory break.
Probably,
but as
yes,
you said,
unless lunch is really challenging.
But then you said one end of the day, and I'm going, yeah, actually, whether they're that shaked up and they're going to let it all out at home, or whether they're going to sit in a taxi for an hour and a half on the way home, actually it might be worth doing it at the end, which literally is every time I come up with the rule, as you said, you say the next thing which breaks it.
Yeah. So it's really hard to do our hard and fast, but as we keep saying, get something done is way better than nothing. If we can tweak it and make it more individualised, then that's even better. But if you can't, don't worry, don't not do it because we can't do it perfectly. Get something done, some muscle work done throughout the day, and in its simplest form, that's all we need to do. Get some active muscle work done regularly throughout the day, and that will help most of your pupils a lot of the time.
And in reality, that having a sensory movement break in the classroom that can be set up and just used as needed is going to be more beneficial than having it once a week in the school hall with everything set up, because they can access that every single day and they will learn, oh, I feel like I need it. And they will learn more about themselves and use it in a more mature way, rather than seeing it as it's a half an hour PE lesson on Monday where we just go run around the hall for half an hour.
Yeah, lots of people know the term sensory diets, which we don't tend to use so much these days. But one of the reasons I like that term is because it makes you think about food and how we eat. And we need to think about feeding our senses in the same way as we feed ourselves with food. We don't have one big meal once a week. I think maybe lions do, but anyway, we don't as humans. We have regular meals throughout the day, and sometimes we have big meals and sometimes we just have a little snack, and our sensory movement breaks need to follow the same pattern. Regular. Sometimes we need a big one, sometimes just a little one will do.
And thinking about, as you said, if they walk to school and walk home from school, that's a movement break. But if they get in a taxi, they're probably not.
No.
So the times for those two different types of children will be different. So you might have some children, they come into classroom, those 4 children will need to have sensory breaks immediately. Those 4 are fine. But they might need one later on because they're struggling with phonics.
Yeah.
So in the head, having something in your classroom that any child can use when it makes sense for them. And as you said, that understanding, am I dysregulated, am I regulated? Don't always have that, struggle with that skill. So you can start off going, okay, why don't you 4 go do this, or one of you do it at a time. It might be much more you directed at the beginning, but as they get more kind of used to it and pick it up and learn the benefits, they'll become much more independent in using that.
Absolutely. And that's ideally where we'd like to get to for adulthood, because if we've got somebody that knows when they need to do something to regulate themselves, that's a lot more helpful as an adult than somebody that doesn't, that's reliant on the teacher running it. So the more we can encourage people to do things for themselves, again, gives you the control. So your PDA child, hopefully, as long as the demands of that then don't become too much, which then becomes really difficult. But on the whole, the more we do for ourselves, the better.
In the notes you sent me, you said that you're launching bread in September 2025. I'm guessing this isn't a competitor to Warburton's or Kingsmill, some sensory bread.
You can't beat Warburton's, can you? It's one of my vices, the blue one, smothered in butter. Oh dear. Yes, I am. So I run some online training for educators, anyone that's working in education, and I have a sensory champion training that will be, by the time this is aired, that pretty much will be there and up and running. I have sensory circuit training, and then coming up from September, I'm launching a brand new approach called the bread approach, and this is our strategy for regulation that is going to help across the school. So in a special school, this would be part of your universal provision, if you like. In a mainstream school, it might be more of your targeted provision for your SEND and neurodiverse pupils. But yeah, BREAD is our acronym. I'm not going to give too much away because I'm still working on it, but it's our 5-step process for regulation in schools that is really easy to follow and is something that will help most of your pupils most of the time. And then for those little extra bits, we add the butter, we add the jam, we add the Marmite, whatever the specifics are on top of that bread.
I was with you till you said the Marmite word.
I'm in Burton-on-Trent, we're a Marmite town. The whole town stinks of it most of the time. Yeah, you wouldn't want to be here, would you?
I had some friends who lived up there. I've been through there. Yes, they've all said it smells of Marmite.
It does. Marmite or beer.
Place I'll never ever move to. But what's weird is I don't like Marmite. My wife does, and I'll make her sandwiches. I'll make her toast. I can't stand it, but I don't mind the Marmite on the knife.
Okay, but just don't lick your fingers afterwards.
I can lick that, but having it on bread is wrong.
Is it? Oh,
but,
just
but
on
I like
bread.
Twiglets.
Oh, no, you're not a true Marmite hater then if you like Twiglets.
Yeah, so it's not a love or hate. It's got to be really crunchy or on its own. I'm not sure I could eat a spoon of it though.
No.
That's punishment.
Okay.
It's not been a Marmite challenge. You've had those people who eat a whole spoonful of cinnamon. If you get a whole Marmite mouthful challenge, that would just be entertaining to watch.
Yeah, no, not for me, thanks. I'll be the one videoing that, all right? I'll be the one holding the camera.
Marvellous. And I will not be involved in it at all. Stay away. Okay, I'm going to wrap up. Thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you very much for having me.
I've managed to get food and desserts in, which is really good.
Always good.
We'll be putting links to things you've mentioned, ways to contact Ali and everything else, all the work she does, and you can find out more in our show notes. And as always, you'll find them on the website or wherever you listen to this podcast, so you can get even more info. And if you are listening to the show and you haven't subscribed, please click on that subscribe button. And don't forget to follow us on lots of social, so Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, and even TikTok. You can follow us. And if you're looking for a simple, secure way to capture and share evidence of learning, or a way to capture pupil voice, a way to celebrate and share achievements, or a simple way to communicate with parents, you need to have a look at Eversense. Eversense is our evidence system that does so much more to help boost parental engagement. It's like using social media with school, but very secure and very private. To find out more about Eversense, visit the B Square website. You can find out all about our online training, our CPD, read our blog, watch our webinars, and loads of other stuff we do. And you'll find a link to the website and a link to book a meeting with me, so I can take you through Eversense and answer any questions you have in the show notes. So thank you for listening. We'll be back next week with another episode of the Zencast. It's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from me too.
She almost said him.
I was going
Chickened
to,
out.
yeah, I was going to.
Bye.
It's there, bubbling up.